Hey everyone, Sam here, back for my first video of 2026. I have a question for you. What do you think about New Year's goals and resolutions? For me personally, I put a lot of stock in them. I think many of my biggest decisions in my life have come out of New Year's resolutions. I also find it a great time just to try and pick up some healthy habits and reprioritize a little bit. So today's video is a quick one to mark the new year, and in it I'm going to outline some of my goals and resolutions for 2026, both as a games designer and for the channel, but also just as a hobbyist. What are my wargaming and Warhammer resolutions for the new year too? And I'm also going to use this video as a chance to do a bit of a retrospective, because 2025 was a big year for me. I left my job at Games Workshop. I moved to the other side of the world, to South Korea. I started my YouTube channel. I've tried to make it as a freelancer. So how has that been? This time last year, I was still living and working in rainy old Nottingham, but I was doing my dream job working on Warhammer. I've said a few times on this channel how much I loved working at Games Workshop, and I really do mean that. So I imagine for some people, when they hear me say things like that, what they'll want to ask is, well, why did I leave? Well, it's a bit of a difficult question to answer, and there are lots of small reasons rather than a big one. And many of those factors are things outside of work, outside the realm of designing rules for toy soldiers. For those of you who only know me as a games designer who has worked on Warhammer, you probably wouldn't know how much South Korea is a big part of my life. I lived out here before in my 20s, I met my wife out here, and there are so many things about this country that I love. For example, I love the lifestyle out here. It's so safe and clean. The shops are open so late, so there's always so much to see and do. And most importantly, there's so many delicious things to eat. Korea has some of the best cuisine in the world. The cities are mixed use everywhere as well. There's no divide between suburbs and downtown like there is in a Western city. Instead, everywhere is this mix of residential, commercial, even industrial. It's like someone's gone totally rogue playing Sim City. But that means there's always so much within walking distance wherever you live. For example, in a ring around my apartment complex are loads of different shops and restaurants. And there's even a sawmill, so if I ever need wooden planks, I guess I can get them straight from source. I've not really done anything about living in South Korea on this channel, so if you guys are interested in finding more about it, let me know and I'll see if I can drop some more tidbits into my videos. It might be fun. And it's not just about the lifestyle. This is my wife's home country. It's where her family lives, and at this point she had lived away for more than 10 years. So like I said, there was always this pull to one day try and move back to South Korea, but the thing that was keeping me in the UK was my job. I loved my job. In 2024, a few things changed for me, however, and they were like the first dominoes falling that would eventually make that desire to move back to South Korea win over. The first was I got a really big promotion in the company. For the last year of working there, I wasn't a games designer anymore. I was the product development manager for Warhammer 40,000, which was a management role and meant that I was involved in the planning of books and box games that came out of the studio, rather than the actual writing of them. It was a very prestigious role, but it was a step back from the creative work. I was no longer directly involved in the writing of rules and background. Instead, I was focused on things like profit margins and so on. At first, I thought it would be okay because I would still be involved in the making and bringing of the worlds of Warhammer to life, but it turned out not to be true. Eventually, it dawned on me that I wasn't doing my dream job anymore. Designing games, writing rules, it's just something that I live for. I absolutely love it. And if I wasn't doing my dream job anymore, what was stopping us from moving back to Korea? What was keeping us in the UK? So this had me questioning, could I finally make the push and become a freelancer? And as games design is a job that's normally done in front of a computer for the most part, could I do it from South Korea instead? But I'm not usually someone who takes big risks like this, so this idea of stepping into the unknown was very scary for me. But I think ultimately what made me decide to pull the trigger is an idea of not wanting to live a life of regret. I think if we had stayed living in the UK, I would have always had this question lingering in the back of my mind. Could we have moved out to South Korea and made our life out here again? So if you were to ask me, do I regret leaving Games Workshop? The answer will always be no. I would have regretted it if I had stayed, simply because there would have always been this question. Could we have lived out in South Korea? Right now, I'm finding out the answer. However, if you were to ask me if I miss working at Games Workshop, that's a different question. And the answer is yes. I miss getting to work in the studio and getting to work on the worlds of Warhammer. I was working with the most amazing and talented people every day, and many of them I consider to be dear friends. So sometimes it's hard, but it's very exciting nonetheless. So we moved back to South Korea in March, and the first few months were spent getting settled in, sorting out things like phones, banks, driving licenses, and most importantly, finding a place to live. Luckily, the house buying process in South Korea is a lot more straightforward than it is in the UK by a considerable margin. So we found an apartment that we liked in July, and it was only a month later, August, when we got to move in. And then next month in September, I launched the YouTube channel. So the channel SPGD has gone down really well, and I want to thank all of you who have supported the channel's growth. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers right now, and the videos themselves have gotten lots of views, which is great. One thing I am blown away by is the amount of nice comments I get on my videos. You guys really say the nicest things, so thank you from the bottom of my heart if you have left a comment on one of my videos. The niche this channel is trying to fulfill is games design, tabletop games design specifically. And there are two other channels that I really look up to and admire. One of them is Matt Colville. I'm a big fan of Matt's. His channel was focused on Dungeons and Dragons to begin with, and now on his own role-playing system, Draw Steel. I was a fan of Matt's right from the start of his Running the Game video series, and I was also a backer of his original Strongholds and Followers Kickstarter. The other channel I look up to is Mark Brown's Game Designer's Toolkit, which I've mentioned a few times on the channel previously. If you don't know about it, I cannot recommend it enough. GMTK is focused on games design, specifically in video games, but most of its applications pass over into tabletop games as well. So the idea with this channel, with SPGD, was to blend those two channels together and shift the focus onto tabletop gaming and wargaming specifically. Now, I'm not as charismatic in front of the camera as Matt Colville, although I do think I've gotten better. I was so awkward when I used to do camera work at Games Workshop. And when it comes to GMTK, my production skills are nothing on Mark's, but that's something I've been trying to improve as well, especially when it comes to the games design topics now. I've been trying to incorporate diagrams and illustrations to make the point as clear as possible. So going into 2026, I want to continue to improve the quality of my videos. And if you have any tips or any things that you would like to see, please let me know down in the comments below and I'll do my best to incorporate them. So with that being said, what are some of my goals for the channel in 2026? Well, I think before I tell you any of them, I should tell you my goals as a games designer instead. And that's because the main goal of this YouTube channel was never for me to become a full-time YouTuber. It was always to support myself as a freelance games designer. When it comes to games design goals of 2026, I have one big one, and that is I want to release my own fantasy skirmish war game this year. It's something that I've talked about on the channel a few times, and I've done a lot of work on it already, but now I need to stop stalling and I need to make that final push. So I've set myself a deadline. The deadline is the end of June. And to help reach that deadline, I'm going to be launching a new series of videos on the channel that is going to showcase my journey and my progress as I complete the game. The first of those videos will be the next one on the channel, so please look forward to that. But with this series of videos, I'm not going to do it back to back like I did with my Games Design 101 series. Instead, I'm going to try and do one video a month, and then I'm going to sprinkle other videos in between. So what are some other videos that I have planned? First up, I'm going to do a video on my favorite war game of all time, which is Necromunda 1995, the classic edition. What I want to do is take a critical look at its campaign system in particular and ask the question, is it as good as I remember, as young Sam remembers, or is it all just nostalgia and rose-tinted glasses? On the channel, I've spoken a few times about my love of Warhammer 40k 2nd edition as well. So another video I'm going to do is what are some ideas modern 40k could learn from 2nd edition. Now, 2nd edition does have a lot of dumb rules, I will admit, but it has lots of mechanics that I'm really fond of as well. And honestly, I think it has some excellent design in parts. So I think that could be a fun video to explore too. Lastly, I plan to do videos that branch out into wider tabletop gaming a bit more. So far, the videos have been very Warhammer focused. I want to branch out into other tabletop miniature war games and also into TCGs and role-playing games as well. I'm a big fan of Magic the Gathering, for example, although that's being tested at the moment. I'm super excited for Lorwyn Eclipsed coming soon, but I am a staunch hater of Universes Beyond. So I don't know quite what the video on Magic will look like, but I think it would be fun to give some of my opinions on it at some point in the future. And for TTRPGs as well, I've mentioned a few times how much I love Mythic Bastion Lands. That was the standout RPG for me from last year. But also there are lots of games that I enjoy, things like Morkborg, things like the Alien RPG. I would like to do videos on what are some neat ideas we could bring from modern TTRPGs into wargaming, because they're very similar in some respects, but also with some key differences. And lastly, one video I would love to do, I need to work out the setup, but I would love to do is a painting video at some point. Talk about the other side of the hobby. So far, I only talk about games design. It would be great to talk about painting and so on. So those are a few ideas planned, and that last one in particular leads on well to this next section. I want to now break away from talking about the channel and talking about games design. I just want to talk about what are my resolutions as a hobbyist going into the next year. So my first hobby goal is to rekindle my love for painting. And this isn't just a goal, this actually comes with a resolution. So my New Year's resolution is to paint or hobby every day from 8 a.m. till 9 a.m. And if I'm away from the house, I'm on holiday or something like that, that doesn't count. But every day that I'm in the house from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., I'm going to dedicate an hour to painting and hobby. I love painting Warhammer, and I had a lot of fun trying to improve over the years. I think I got quite good at it by the end. If you play Warhammer 40,000 10th edition, you're probably familiar with this page. Well, this is my Genestealer cult army in the background, an army I'm very proud of. Since moving back to Korea, I have honestly struggled to get paint on a paintbrush and then onto a miniature. And I could chalk it up to things like getting settled in, moving house and so on. But I think really if I had carved out some time, even just 30 minutes a day, I would have made a much more progress in my painting over the years, because just a small amount done on a regular basis really does add up. So the resolution to that is to have a painting slot from 8 a.m. till 9 a.m. And that's one of the good things about working as a freelancer, right? I have no commute, so I can use that time that I was using for a commute previously to do some painting. And for this resolution, I've actually started it already. I don't believe waiting until January 1st. If you have a good resolution, you might as well just start it once you've thought of it. And it's already paying dividends. I've painted every morning this week, and it's helped me finally finish off this Skaven Underworld's warband that's been on my painting desk since March or April. Here they are in all of their ratty glory. And to keep me motivated on this resolution, I'm going to start posting weekly updates onto my Twitter account, or my X account, I guess, and also my new Blue Sky account. Someone left a comment on if I was going to join Blue Sky on one of my videos. So yes, I finally have. There is a link down in the description below. If you guys are also posting lots of miniature painting onto your feeds, please let me know. I will follow you back so I can fill my feed with all sorts of lovely inspiration to keep me motivated. So that's big hobby resolution number one. Now, if I'm going to do all of this painting, what am I planning to paint? Well, first up, I want to paint some warbands for my upcoming fantasy skirmish game that I keep mentioning. More on that next video. But as a small hint, I have absolutely no intention of playing Warhammer Underworlds with these Skaven. They will be perfect to be used as a verminkin, which is what my rat men are going to be called. So I have a lot of Warhammer miniatures ready to paint with that in mind. Skaven, Empire, Cities of Sigmar, Nighthaunt, Undead, lots and lots of stuff. The second project I want to do is a Warhammer 40,000 one, and that is to continue with my Eldar army. Here it is at the moment, essentially just a combat patrol with a unit of Wraith Guard added in. Before I left Games Workshop, I used my staff discount to purchase some Eldar models for myself. So I got a box of the new Fire Dragons and also a Fire Prism. So I want to get both of those painted this year. With the Eldar project, the goal is to make an army that is compatible with both the modern editions and 2nd edition. This is actually a 1000 point army already in 2nd edition, and I got them on the table earlier this year against my good friend Niall. By the way, I mentioned that 2nd edition has some really dumb rules, and the Wraith Guard are some of the worst offenders. The rules for their Wraith cannons are just absolutely bonkers. They roll to hit as normal, automatically penetrating vehicle armor on a successful hit, which means just one of these things can smoke a vehicle in a single shot. And when they hit troops, they have a 50-50 chance of just vaporizing them too. Doesn't matter what it is, a Carnifex or anything. But it is this other effect that is the worst in my opinion. If the target isn't vaporized, it's flung 2d6 in a random direction. So you would roll the scatter dice and see where they land. In that game against Niall's Orcs, we could just feel the frame rate of the game stuttering as random Orc boys were getting flinged in all sorts of directions, breaking squad coherency and forcing us to look up the rules on how to move units out of coherency. I love 2nd edition, but that is such a terribly designed gun. It is just so annoying to play with such a silly rule. Another big project I'd like to do for the year is Space Salt. Oh, heavy box. I have had this set for like 8 years now. It was one of the first things I bought on staff discount when I joined Games Workshop. That staff discount is 50% by the way, so Space Salt cost me £35, which feels like the biggest steal of the century looking back on it. I've already got all of the Gene Stealers from it painted. They are a big chunk of my Gene Stealers in my Tyranid and Gene Stealer Court armies. And while I've painted a load of Blood Angels, I have a Blood Angels army including some Terminators, I haven't got these Terminators specifically painted yet. I'm going to paint these old ones instead of the new ones because despite them looking a little bit dated and goofy now, they fit perfectly onto 32mm bases. I have one here on a 32mm base, which means they're perfect for moving around the squares of the Space Hulk tiles. So even if they are looking a little bit tired now, I want to get these done just for the board game. I'm not going to use them alongside my regular army. And the last thing I plan to paint is a load of terrain. I bought so much terrain with me from the UK over to South Korea. I can't be parted with my terrain. I brought with me my Warcry autumnal themed terrain. I brought with me my Necromunda terrain. And I also brought with me loads of 40k terrain, but the problem is none of it is painted. It's all just undercoated. So the goal is to get all of this 40k terrain that I have painted, and that ties into my second resolution for the year, which is to play a narrative game of 40k. There is actually a thriving 40k scene out in South Korea, so I was thinking of going to one of the tournaments. They hold them in a city called Osan, which is not too far from me, about an hour's drive north. And I might still go, but I'm not going to make it a resolution because deep down I'm not really a tournament gamer. I think that comes across from all of the content that I post on this channel. I'm a narrative gamer at heart. I like one-off narrative scenarios and I love campaign systems, playing games that are linked together in a campaign. So my other hobby resolution is a simple one, just to play a narrative game of 40k here in South Korea. It can be any edition. I would love 2nd edition, but it can be 10th edition, that's fine. There is a big group chat for expats that play 40k on a platform called Kakao Talk, which is like Korea's version of WhatsApp. So I'm on there and I've spoken to a few people that are local or sometimes come by my area. And so once I've got a space set up in my apartment and my terrain painted as well, I'm going to get some narrative games of 40k in, and hopefully they will lead to something regular. It used to be so much easier at work when I could just play games on my lunch break or after work. So it's actually been quite a challenge finding other expats around me that are into geeky hobbies. I found a group that played Dungeons and Dragons, so I played a few sessions with them, which was really good fun. So now I need to find some Warhammer players around me too. So those are my 2 hobby resolutions, and combined with the plans that I have in terms of games design, making my own games, and also the things I want to do on the channel, it's going to keep me very busy, I imagine, through 2026. So that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Please give a like, and if you're not already subscribed, please do so. We're very close to that 10,000 subscribers milestone. Let me know what your hobby resolutions are down in the comments below. And if you are a budding games designer, let me know what your goals for games design are too. I would love to see them. Otherwise, until next time, bye for now.